Hello and a very good morning from Gothenburg here in Sweden. Now today I'm going to be travelling back over to Stockholm with FlixTrain. Obviously travelled with them in Germany last year, so it will be interesting to see what, if anything, is different from the FlixTrain offered in Germany. Anyway, just going to make my way into the station and yeah, let's head to Stockholm. Gothenburg Central Station is located just a short walk away from the city centre, which, trust me, is certainly appreciated when the outside temperature is as low as it is today. It was about minus 12 degrees Celsius when I filmed this. The station is the oldest still in use anywhere in Sweden, having opened in 1858. Within the station you'll find this fairly decent shopping arcade, which includes the likes of a couple of 7-Elevens and a Burger King. The station is directly connected to the adjacent bus station, meaning you don't have to venture out into the cold to move between the two. As is common in most major stations in Europe, luggage lockers are available within the station building. As you can probably tell, the bit of the station I've shown you so far isn't anything like 170 years old, but rather is an extension that was built in the early 2000s. However, moving further along we find the original bit of the station. I really like it. It's all nice and quaint, and it sort of reminds me of an old chapel. Plenty of departures and arrivals boards can be found throughout the station, with information being displayed in both Swedish and English. Before too long, the time comes to head to platform 7 in preparation for boarding. The service we're catching today is actually the only FlixTrain departure of the day, and will be departing at 12:28. The train is shunted in fresh from the depot around half an hour prior to departure. Just a short consist today, with our train only being made of 3 coaches and a locomotive. The rolling stock used here in Sweden is exactly the same as the coaches that FlixTrain use in Germany, being refurbished ex-InterRegio coaches dating from the 1960s and 70s. In contrast to the coaches, haulage is provided by a much more modern Siemens Vectron electric locomotive, which dates from within the last 10 years or so. Our train has a top speed of 200 km an hour or 124 miles an hour, so is as fast as the trains used by their competitors, the national operator SJ, and fellow open access operator MTRX, who also operate on this route, although unlike the SJ trains, FlixTrain's trains don't tilt, so we'll have to slow down for some of the curves en route. Anyway, I think I've waffled on enough, so let's head and find our seat. You can either let FlixTrain automatically allocate you your seat, or pay to select. Now, usually I'd be quick to blast this, but given that FlixTrain market themselves as a low-cost operator, I think that this is somewhat excusable. FlixTrain only offer one class of seating, with all of their coaches featuring a 2+2 seating layout. That said though, they do offer extra legroom seats for a little bit extra, and they even charge you if you want a place at a table seat. It's all very Ryanair-esque. I must say, for a coach that's knocking on 50 years old, the interior is looking very smart and modern. At least in terms of looks, this is a very nice refurbishment. Legroom is actually pretty good, and this isn't even one of the extra legroom seats. A large and sturdy tray table can be found, and they even feature little grooves for holding a phone or tablet, and a proper cup holder, which is nice. A coat hook is provided on the back of the seat in front, and a further cup holder can be found in between the seats. Both a 2-pin plug socket and a pair of USB outlets can be found per pair of seats, although I found that most of these didn't work all that well. As for the seats, well, they're a little bit on the firm side, but still pretty comfortable in my opinion. And I must say, the simple but smart upholstery looks very nice indeed. And lastly, if for some reason -12 is your ideal temperature, it's possible to open some of the windows a little bit, although you really need both hands to get them to budge as they're quite firm. But overall, a pretty good seat for a budget operator in my opinion, but do let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Anyway, before we set off, let's just take a quick look at our route for today. Our journey will see us heading northeast from Gothenburg, calling at Falköping, Hallsberg and Södertälje, before arriving into the capital city Stockholm. Scheduled travel time is 3 hours and 31 minutes, and our top speed will be 200 km an hour. And we depart Gothenburg on time at just before 12:30. As we make our way out of Gothenburg, we pass Skansen Leonet, which is a fort dating from the late 17th century. It was as we made our way out of Gothenburg that the whole FlixTrain Sweden experience started to fall apart for me. It was painfully apparent that these coaches weren't designed to deal with the harsh Swedish winters, and we were left freezing for the entire trip, to the point where I didn't even take my big coat off. I must say that, even at speed, the ride quality of these coaches is remarkably good for their age, so even if we were freezing, at least we're not being rattled around. Our first stop today is Falköping. I think the reason for the coaches being so cold must have been down to the fact that even when the windows were allegedly shut, a small crack was left at the top, allowing cold air in. Like the sound of ad-free early access to videos? If so, be sure to check out our Patreon and channel members pages to get this for as little as $1 per month. Up next is Hallsberg, or at least I think that's close to how it's supposed to be pronounced, which is home to one of Volvo's logistics centres. Right, time for a wander, and we'll start at the front of the train today. The front carriage is the accessible coach, with spaces for people with reduced mobility, including a couple of wheelchair spaces. This is usually coach number 100, should you wish to ensure a seat in this carriage. While there are no larger stacks, there is space for storing large items of luggage towards the end of this coach, although the other two don't have them. Unfortunately, 4 of the train's 5 toilets were out of service today, which is definitely not great at all. I can't tell if this was due to the coaches not being able to cope with the cold weather, or perhaps something else, but the poor hostess was constantly running back and forth trying to reset them. In addition to the dedicated luggage space in the front carriage, there are fairly large overhead racks provided, and I must say, I'm a big fan of the lighting being incorporated into them too. And yes, if you're wondering, the other coaches were just as cold as ours. And of course, being a classic loco-hauled train, the trademark view out of the back, and what I often dub the best window on the train, is present here. As you can imagine, with there only being 1 toilet in service on the entire train, there were quite long waits to use it, despite the fact that the train is barely a quarter full. That said though, at least this one meets the standard of clean, well stocked, and in good working order. Lastly, this train is Wi-Fi enabled, which is a welcome addition, and can be used to access the onboard entertainment portal, called FlixTrain. As for browsing speeds, well, I couldn't even get my speed test to run, but phone signal is good for much of the trip. Around an hour out of Stockholm, the sun begins to set. This is despite it only being around 3 PM, but that's how it is here in the winter. It reminds me of when I used to live in the Highlands of Scotland. Around 20 minutes out of Stockholm, we arrive at our next and final intermediate stop of Södertälje South. So, my final thoughts on the FlixTrain experience. Well, what I'm about to say is a shame, as on the surface it's a really nice product, with comfortable, modern and smart interiors, and reasonably priced tickets. While I could have perhaps looked past 1 or even 2 toilets being out of service, to have 4 of the 5, including the accessible toilet out of service, is in itself bang out of order for me. And not to mention the fact that the inside of the coaches were almost as cold as it was outside. As I said, this is a shame as the tickets are priced really quite reasonably, with my one-way ticket setting me back £15.98, booking through Flixbus's UK site, hence I was able to pay in pounds. This fare includes £11.99 for my ticket, £2.99 to select one of the regular airline style seats, and a £1 service fee. The total cost comes in at about the same price as the cheapest fares on both SJ and MTRX, both of whom offer a much higher level of service in my opinion. One thing I failed to mention to this point is that FlixTrain don't offer any onboard catering, which is something that both of their competition offer. So for me, the best experience on this route is on either SJ or MTRX. But what did you make of the FlixTrain experience here in Sweden? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. We end up pulling into Stockholm Central Station, around a minute or so early at 2 minutes to 4. So I've made it to Stockholm. Yeah, as expected, the coaches were very similar, exactly the same in fact as the German FlixTrain ones. Difference is, I don't think they were designed for Swedish winters. They were very cold and the toilets seemed to keep breaking. And yeah, it's just, I think they worked fantastic in Germany, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of the problems we had there were maybe to do with the fact that they're not designed for like minus 15 degrees. Anyway, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to help us out by giving the video a like. If you're new to the channel, then be sure to subscribe and enable notifications, as I publish new trip reports every Monday and Friday. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.